This boy claimed to be Albert Einstein in a past life, and it's one of the most chilling reincarnation cases in history. It began subtly, in the quiet suburbs of Munich, Germany, in the autumn of 2008. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant bakeries. Our story centers on the Schneider family: Thomas, a meticulous engineer; Clara, a warm, nurturing teacher; and their son, Leo. Leo was born on a Tuesday, a seemingly ordinary child in an extraordinary world. He was a bright-eyed boy with a mop of unruly brown hair and a smile that could melt the coldest heart. Their home, a quaint house with a garden Clara tended meticulously, was filled with laughter and the comforting rhythm of everyday life. Thomas often worked late, the hum of his computer a nightly lullaby. Clara would read to Leo, their voices a soft counterpoint to the city's gentle murmur. Leo's early years were unremarkable, marked by typical childhood milestones. He learned to walk, then to run, his tiny footsteps echoing through the house. His first words were "Mama" and "Papa," uttered with the sweetness all parents cherish. Yet, even then, a subtle difference began to emerge. It started with his intense gaze, often fixed on distant, unseen things. He'd spend hours alone, arranging his building blocks into intricate, often impossible structures. Sometimes he would babble equations, not coherent words, but a rapid-fire succession of numbers and symbols. Clara initially dismissed it as a child's imaginative play, a phase. Thomas, ever the pragmatist, believed it was an early sign of a keen, analytical mind. They were proud, of course, but also slightly perplexed by his unusual intensity. The subtle behaviors soon gave way to something far more unsettling. One evening, while Clara was helping Leo with his ABCs, he suddenly pointed to a picture of an atom in an old science book. "That's not quite right, Mama," he said, his voice unusually serious for a 5-year-old. "The electrons orbit in a probabilistic cloud, not defined paths. And the nucleus, it's much more complex than just protons and neutrons." Clara, stunned, asked him how he knew such things. Leo merely shrugged, a faraway look in his eyes. "I just remember it." Another time, during a family trip to a science museum, Leo stopped in front of an exhibit on relativity. He began to explain in detail the concepts of space-time curvature and gravitational lensing to a bewildered museum guide. He used terms like tensor fields and Lorentz transformations, concepts that were light years beyond his understanding. The guide, a retired physicist, listened with a mixture of awe and disbelief, his jaw slowly dropping with each impossible utterance. "Who taught him this?" the guide whispered to Thomas, who could only shake his head, utterly lost for words. The car ride home was silent, heavy with unspoken questions. Clara held Leo's hand tightly, a chill creeping up her spine that had nothing to do with the autumn air. The boy they thought they knew was beginning to unravel before their very eyes. The turning point, the moment of undeniable revelation, came on Leo's 6th birthday. As Thomas was struggling to explain the simple mechanics of a toy train, Leo interjected, his voice clear and resonant. "It's about the fundamental forces, Papa. Electromagnetism primarily, but also the weak and strong nuclear forces holding the material together. And of course gravity, though negligible at this scale." Thomas froze, the toy train forgotten. He looked at his son, his heart pounding. "Leo," he began, his voice barely a whisper, "how do you know these things?" Leo looked up, his bright eyes holding an ancient wisdom. "Because I used to know them. I was Albert Einstein." The words hung in the air, a profound shockwave rippling through the small family. Clara dropped the birthday cake, its sugary frosting splattering across the pristine kitchen floor. Thomas stumbled back, collapsing onto a chair. "Albert Einstein?" Clara finally managed to articulate, her voice a strangled gasp. But he died decades ago." Leo nodded, a serene expression on his face. "Yes, in 1955. It was a long journey back." He then began to recount details of Einstein's life, his struggles with formal education, his time in the patent office, the intellectual circles he frequented, the specific thought experiments that led to his groundbreaking theories. He described the smell of the tobacco in his pipes, the feel of his worn leather jacket, the profound loneliness he sometimes felt amidst his brilliance. These were not facts a child could glean from a quick internet search or a children's book. They were sensory, intimate details that resonated with an almost impossible authenticity. Thomas, a man of science, felt his worldview fracturing. Clara, a woman of faith, found her understanding of the soul profoundly shaken. Their son, their precious Leo, was claiming to be one of the most brilliant minds in human history. The sheer audacity of the claim was breathtaking, yet the conviction in Leo's eyes and the impossible knowledge he possessed made it terrifyingly real. If this shocks you so far, subscribe and tell us in the comments what you think about reincarnation. News of the Schneider boy, the little Einstein, quickly spread beyond their quiet neighborhood. Initially, it was dismissed as a clever hoax, an overactive imagination, or perhaps a parental stunt. But the consistent, verifiable details Leo provided began to pique the interest of academics and media alike. A team of experts was assembled. Dr. Eleanor Vance, a renowned child psychologist specializing in past life regressions, Professor Marcus Thorne, a historian with an encyclopedic knowledge of early 20th century physics, and Father Michael, a Jesuit scholar with a deep interest in theological mysteries. They arrived at the Schneiders' home, a palpable air of skepticism accompanying them. Their first encounter with Leo was a carefully orchestrated interview. Dr. Vance began with simple questions about his current life, slowly transitioning to more complex topics. Leo answered with the innocence of a child, but when the conversation shifted to physics, his demeanor changed. Professor Thorne presented Leo with abstract mathematical problems written on a blackboard, problems that would challenge graduate students, let alone a 6-year-old. Without hesitation, Leo picked up the chalk and with surprising dexterity began to solve them, step by step, explaining his reasoning in a calm, authoritative voice. He corrected Thorne on a specific historical detail regarding the Solvay Conference of 1927, even citing the precise phrasing of a debate between Einstein and Niels Bohr. Father Michael, hoping to find a spiritual or psychological explanation, showed Leo a series of vintage photographs, some of Einstein, others of famous contemporaries. Leo not only identified Einstein instantly, but also named others in the photos, sometimes even recalling the specific circumstances under which the photos were taken, details that were largely unknown to the general public, even to historians. The experts exchanged stunned glances. This was beyond clever memorization or sophisticated coaching. This was impossible. The climax arrived during a subsequent session, a moment that shattered all remaining doubt. Professor Thorne, after weeks of poring over Einstein's personal letters and archived notes, presented Leo with a complex, unfinished equation that Einstein had been working on in his later years, a theoretical attempt at a unified field theory that had remained unresolved at the time of his death. It was a cryptic jumble of symbols, known only to a handful of scholars. Leo stared at the equation for a long moment, his brow furrowed in concentration. Then, slowly, almost as if remembering a long-forgotten thought, he picked up a pen and began to complete it. He worked with a fluid, confident stroke, adding symbols, correcting existing ones, and meticulously filling in the missing pieces. The room fell silent, the air thick with anticipation. When he finished, the solution was not only mathematically sound, but also elegant, offering a plausible path forward that had eluded even the brightest minds for decades. It was a testament to the original Einstein's genius, now channeled through the mind of a child. As he placed the pen down, Leo looked up, a faint smile gracing his lips. "It was a stubborn problem," he murmured, "but I always knew the path. Just needed a little more time." Thorne, his face pale with shock, compared Leo's completed equation with his own painstaking research into Einstein's unpublished notes. The match was uncanny. The boy had not just solved it. He had continued Einstein's work where it had been left off, providing a breakthrough that historians and physicists had only dreamed of. It was a supernatural proof, an undeniable link to a past life that defied all rational explanation. The aftermath of Leo's revelations sent ripples through every sphere of society. The Schneider family, once anonymous, found themselves at the center of a global phenomenon, Scientists struggled to reconcile quantum physics with the concept of a soul carrying memories across lifetimes. Religious leaders grappled with the implications for doctrines of death and resurrection. Historians were forced to re-evaluate what they thought they knew about human consciousness. Leo, remarkably, remained grounded. He continued to be a child, enjoying his toys and games, but with an undeniable depth and an occasional profound insight that startled those around him. He spoke less of his past life as he grew older, the vivid memories slowly fading, replaced by the experiences of his current existence. Yet, the seed of doubt had been sown. The case of Leo Schneider, the boy who was Albert Einstein, remains a potent challenge to our understanding of life and death. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable, thrilling possibility that our journey through existence is far more complex, far more enduring than we ever dared to imagine. It asks us to consider that perhaps the greatest discoveries lie not just in the future, but in the echoes of the past, waiting to be remembered. What do you think? Could this child truly be the reincarnation of Albert Einstein? Comment below and subscribe for more chilling cases.